Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special coverage and a special edition covering the American presidential elections of 2016. Now, all eyes are towards the American elections right now. The nominations between Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Hillary Clinton. So far, according to previous polls undertaken over the past couple of days, Hillary Clinton has edged Donald Trump about 46.6% to Trump's 44.8%. We're going to be following up over the next few minutes, maybe even an hour, over some of the reactions and the developments taking place here in Egypt and the U.S. as well. And we're joined now over the phone by Mrs. Basant Badr, an American-Egyptian citizen living right now in the U.S., to fill us on the latest developments and updates taking place regarding the presidential process and the elections. Hello, Mrs. Badr, can you hear us?
Hello, yes, I am here.
First of all, can you tell us, what are the main reactions and the latest developments regarding the presidential elections and the ballot boxes and the voters actually going to cast their votes for the next president of the United States?
So I'm from Massachusetts, and it's a very democratic state. So we're very excited. There's obviously a lot of support for Hillary, especially here, and people are really going all out to reach out to voters, to encourage others to get up and vote, regardless of who they choose, just because it's so important to be civically involved. But we're all anxiously awaiting the result. Hopefully, we will continuously watch as it unfolds.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've been talking about the importance of actually voters going to cast their ballots, but there was a big portion of the citizens, and that's what we've been hearing, that calling for abstaining actually from voting and going to the polls. How true is that, and is there a significant amount of people abstaining from participating in this process?
Yeah, I think it's very natural for some people not to vote, especially since you have to register before. So it does take a bit of a proactive kind of outlook. But I think a lot of people just feel disillusioned and disheartened, and so because they might not like either of the candidates, they'll say, "What's the point? It's not worth it." But ultimately, it's interesting to see a lot of people say, even though we're not necessarily in favor of either of the candidates, we definitely don't want, or at least what I've been hearing is, we definitely don't want Trump to win, to represent our country. And so, regardless of how we feel, we will put that aside and we'll get up and we'll vote anyways. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, as an Egyptian-American citizen, or mainly as an American citizen, who do you feel of the both candidates would be better for internal and domestic affairs?
That's a packed and loaded question. I definitely am on the side of just, supportive of Hillary, just because we have seen the impact, kind of the disruption of Trump, really from very basic things like equality, which is such a foundational aspect of American society. And that disruption, the hate that comes out of it, is really, really scary to witness. So internally and externally, I think we need an approach that is more united, that is more inclusive. And Hillary represents that. I think it's hard to really predict what's going to happen, but we know what we don't want, and I think that's enough for me, at least.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you feel that Hillary Clinton, as a Democratic nominee, do you feel that she is what you want to fulfill your hopes and aspirations as a citizen? Or do you feel that you are picking the best of two bad options?
I think a big part of it is just that I need to research more. And I think a lot of people can relate. There are definitely but folks who are gung-ho, have done their research, and are fully invested. I'm open to Hillary mostly because I'm just appalled by the reaction that Trump has created, and the environment that he's created. But I do confess that I need to do my research to be kind of fully confident that Hillary will do, I guess, as she's promised. But ultimately, her campaign is strong. She has definitely extended an olive branch to marginalized communities. Her platform is really about kind of continuing the legacy left behind to kind of to push for progress, and that's something I can fall into and believe in.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ms. Badr, now it has been quite a controversial campaign on both sides, and since you are a Hillary Clinton supporter, what about the controversies regarding her, the email scandals, all changing a lot of her statements now as opposed to a while back? Even the health issue has been on the table for quite some time. Did you feel that this might change or swing some votes or hinder her chances in any way?
Well, I think part of it is she has been kind of cleared. The FBI did come back and say, we've completed our investigation. And so I think that could actually put a lot of people's minds at ease. Obviously, it is extremely controversial and should be, right? It's something we want to critique and be very cognizant of in this age of just security and making sure that is upheld. But the clearance in itself, I think, would put a lot of people's minds at ease. And then I think controversy is inevitable. Right? Media sources show you what they want to show you, right? So you are always going to have people who are for you, who are supporting you, and people who are against you. And I think that's just how it is with everyone.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's assume the scenario that Hillary Clinton will win this election. How different do you feel it could be as opposed to the past 8 years that Obama was in charge? Do you feel that it's going to be a continuation of the same policies, whether foreign policies or internal policies as well, or do you think that she will add something different to the table?
It's a good question. I guess I'm willing to be cautiously surprised. I guess right now, in the moment, I don't feel like there's going to be any significant disruption. I think it's a beautiful, symbolic. If it happens, it would be a symbolic victory, just for a woman to have the first American U.S. president. But in terms of my day-to-day, I feel like it will most likely be a continuation, but I'm definitely open to being surprised.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ms. Badr, a lot of people are viewing these elections. They're saying that, well, they might be two candidates going different directions, and the rhetoric has turned quite personal at times. But it doesn't really matter who's going to become the next president of the United States. The policies wouldn't be as radical as both directions might indicate, and it would still be decided really by the House of Representatives and the Congress. How true is that?
So I would say that, it's not just about the policies, but it's about people's morale and how people feel. And I think the president plays a big part in that. Right, who your leader is impacts, how you feel, and just sentiment, right? Like public sentiment is always something that we're measuring. So I do think it's impactful. I think it matters, even if people would argue that it doesn't from the perspective of policies. There are other aspects of our lives that are touched by this, right? Just general public morale and sentiment. And I think that's huge in this election. where the opponents are so polarized, right, and are definitely coming in with very, very potent perspectives, it matters. It matters.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Well,
you want to be proud of your leader. You want to have that kind of feeling of being proud.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, definitely the image of a country's leader is definitely important. So, were there any reports of any irregularities or violence taking place at the polling stations? Anything of the sort at any state so far?
It's definitely not something I've noticed, and it's not anything that I've heard of. I have a lot of friends and family members who went out to vote. It's been a pretty straightforward process. I know some people get to vote early in some states, and some just go the day of. But honestly, for me, it was a good experience. I didn't have to wait too long. There was definitely no violence. But also, if you think about it, you're probably voting in your community, and certain communities and certain states tend to sway one direction more than the other. So you won't necessarily be facing huge conflicts of interest. And I think people are pretty respectful that it's like a personal decision. Like even when we talk about voting, we'll say, oh yeah, I voted today. Well, we don't have to get into the specifics of exactly who I voted for and what I voted for. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mrs. Badr, now, how do you feel about the foreign policies regarding both candidates? Do you feel that they have different approaches regarding their foreign policies towards countries such as Russia, countries in the Middle East? How do you feel they will tackle these files, both candidates?
That's a great question. I think it's come up a lot. You always, even online, just hear the news about kind of Trump and his relationship, with Russia, and then you will see that in the campaigns, right? But I honestly think that there are huge kind of foreign policy implications to all of this, and I try not to get too carried away with predicting before results are out.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mrs. Badr, one final question. Now, regarding the past 8 years under the leadership of Barack Obama, now when he first came to office, there was a lot of promise. Everybody expected like almost 180 degrees change. How much do you feel that he has fulfilled the aspirations and hopes of the American citizens domestically and internationally as well?
So I think lately Obama has been actually doing pretty well in terms of how people perceive him and popularity. I believe I read that it's definitely at a high right now. I think people go back and forth a lot because when you set really high expectations and you don't exceed them, then people feel discouraged or like I expected more. But I do feel that Obama has delivered a lot and accomplished a lot in his past 8 years, and I'm thankful for it.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Pasant Badr, an Egyptian-American citizen situated in the U.S., thank you very much for joining us this evening. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll definitely be following up on the latest developments taking place in the American presidential elections. We should expect the final result in the early hours of the morning, about 11 p.m. Eastern Time, almost 6 a.m. here in Egypt. So far, there are no real concrete results as in who is leading in which state, but we'll definitely be following up. We'll be off to a short break and we'll be right back.
thing because in the end,
All right, Jason Blake. What is your current address?
They didn't work out here today, didn't they? Didn't want to play shots. Did it?
Oh, they're playing with the structure a little bit.
There you are, sir. Thank you very much. Hi there.
You're Associated Press, correct? Right. Okay, now, yeah, I can understand, but what world is like this on this correct? Yes. So, nobody's got the United States out one administration, right? Yeah, I've got a contract to deal with the other. Now, can the other person say, hey, we're going to space the Tacoma for wild coffee? Or, so much, let's say, they're kicking back watching you, right? Now, I'm just wondering, why are they watching us? We're going to be letting
Yeah.
I don't know the motivation. You know, people exchange.
I'm talking specifically about so they requested this kind of thing. They pay for that service.
This here is turnout is going on now. Oh, that's what I see standing out lines.
There's some outside. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I'm doing this until
He doesn't know yet, right? They don't tell you
yeah,
yet.
front supporter. Yeah, you gotta watch. We're gonna watch Maybe. Anything's possible. You too. Good talking to you.
But I really don't have any idea. Alright, it was good seeing you. It's usually close to 69%. I mean, probably close to that. Yeah, probably. You never know. It's going to be higher. So much.
I've already done it. See which one's supposed to go in here.
Did our duty literally this morning. Good.
Hi. Yes, I did.
That's all I need.
Yep. No. Thank you. You get a sticker if you want.
Well, I got one right here.
Did you get one? Okay, good. Hi there. There. What's your name? You have your ID with you, okay? And if you just stand right over here. Okay, sorry. What is your current address? Oh, let's see. Craig Bones, right?
rotating gate. He's in the right section.
Yeah, he's in the right.
You can use those there. You didn't have to go.
Take that, go over to this table over here, and that's what you do.
Our address is
18.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the special coverage of the 2016 presidential American elections. And we're now joined over the phone by Mr. Suhail Mohammed, the political analyst and author from New York. Mr. Mohammed, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Mr. Mohammed, first of all, how would you evaluate the run-up, actually up until today, November 8th? How would you rate and evaluate the campaigns, the three debates between two presidents, with all the two nominees, with all the controversy and all the personal blows they've been receiving?
Well, this was an unprecedented election in the history of the U.S. I mean, it had been going on for the past 18 months or so, and, you know, Hillary Clinton and Trump, they were very strong rivals. It, you know, went on and on and on, and, you know, people are sort of relieved that the election is taking today. I mean, it went on till the very, very end. It was a very tough fight, and, you know, they're very close, and people are now voting in the country. It's evening here on the East Coast, but, you know, for this was an election that we have not seen in the USA for a very, very long time. Very strongly contested, very, very strongly contested, and very heated up. And, you know, there was unprecedented, you know, competition. We've never seen this competition before. I mean, Trump and Hillary Clinton were very strong candidates and very strong rivals. The third candidate, you know, doesn't count. You know, it is the history of the USA that this is a contest between the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. So this is now finally a match between Hillary Clinton and Trump. And we will see the results tonight. Unprecedented. And there is a lot of competition, and there's a lot of focus on a few states like North Carolina, like Michigan, like Pennsylvania, and we are now looking at unprecedented turnout also, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is an election which is historic by many, many measures.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Mohammed, as you've mentioned, this is the impression that we're getting here in Egypt and in many parts of the world, that it is quite a close contest and a close race, and there is definitely a clear division between both nominees. But what about the undecided voter? How big of a percentage does the undecided voter constitute within these elections?
Well, yes, that is the real issue. I mean, there is no doubt that, you know, Hillary Clinton has a certain edge over Trump, about a 4% lead. You know, that is, you know, a given. I mean, as far as the situation today is concerned, 44% versus 42 to Trump. So people who have decided, I mean, people who are voting Democrat, they have already voted or will vote in the next few hours. And people who have decided to vote for the Republican Party and Trump, they will cast their vote for Trump. So, you know, the Democrats have an edge as we stand today. The real question is how will the independents vote? And, what happened last night was unprecedented in the history of American elections. It has never happened that a sitting president has gone out of his way to support a candidate. We have seen Barack Obama, the president of the USA, come out for supporting Hillary Clinton. This was the 17th time that he did it in the last night. Okay, and it's not only Barack Obama; it is his wife, Michelle Obama, who came out again and again and again. It has never happened before. I'm repeating myself. Barack Obama, the sitting president of the USA, came out to support a candidate of his party, Clinton, for the 17th time. And he has come out very, very strongly. He made a very strong emotional appeal last night, and it went on. It was a great show. But, the whole idea was not to appeal to the base. The Democrats are already out there voting in very large numbers. The whole idea was, and the whole emotionalism that we saw last night was to appeal to the undecided. And the Democrat Party is hoping that enough undecided will sort of switch over to the Democrat Party and Hillary Clinton will win. It appears that Hillary Clinton will be the next president of the USA. But it's too early to say.
Yes, well, Mr. Mohammed, as you've mentioned, it was unprecedented and quite unusual to see the current President Barack Obama actually campaigning for the Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. Do you feel, even though that the early polls have suggested that even though it's a close contest between both nominees, still Hillary Clinton was edging a little bit closer to the presidential office? But can we take that President Obama campaigning for Hillary Clinton as a sign of a serious threat posed by Donald Trump and a very good competition presented by the Republican nominee to actually win the race, that they actually needed the current president to help campaign for Hillary Clinton?
Yes, of course. Of course, there's no doubt about that, the Trump phenomena is something which is, it has to be taken very seriously in American politics, Here is a populist, who, of course, his opponents term him as totally incompetent to be the president of the USA, a racist, a demagogue. But, you have to understand that he has support in the working white American, support base, and he represents a lot of anger at the American political system. He's an outsider, and who has, really shaken up the election as never before. Remember, he stood in the primaries, in the American election system. You have to fight against, in the primary phase, you have to fight against your own party candidates, and they were very strong rivals. Like Tradkos and Bush and others, but he fought against them and he became the nominee, and he fought against his own Republican Party establishment. He has angered a lot of Republican Party establishment, but he, kept on going because he represents the anger at the political system, what he calls the corruption, what he calls, the skewed system, what he calls, the whole political system that has sold out to vested interest groups and on and on and on. But he was able to make a dent in the politics of this country, and he was able to sort of speak for the anger and the anxiety and the aspirations of the working white middle Americans as never before in the country.
Yes.
And he was a serious threat. He was taken as a serious threat. That is why President Obama was out there for Hillary Clinton. I mean, the Hillary Clinton and the Democrats were under no illusion that this is going to be easy. This is a very hotly contested race.
Well, Mr. Mohammed, as you said, there is a big portion of undecided voters within the American population for this presidential elections. And you've mentioned, I mean, you are living in New York, so one would assume the majority of New Yorkers would be voting for Hillary Clinton. But what about these swing states, such as Ohio, Iowa, Michigan, North Carolina? These states, how do you think, I mean, what would be the deciding factor for them to choose either Clinton or Trump?
Well, that is the question. I mean, we do not know. As a political analyst, we do not know. I mean, what will be the deciding factor? This is a very individual decision. I mean, we've been having these debates and these arguments, for about a few months now. And these arguments and these debates have become very heated. I mean, this was an election that shook the country. The country was divided, I mean, the country has been divided between the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. I mean, remember, the Republican Party controls the Congress. And, the Democrats were hoping that they will not only attain the White House, Hillary Clinton will become the next president, but they have to attain 5 seats in the Senate. And they have to attain 30 seats in the House of Representatives to become a majority party. So this competition and these arguments and these fierce debates, they were tearing up the country as never before. I mean, we really do not know how people will make up their minds. But in the end, this is a very stable political system. I mean, this is the marvel of democracy. This is perhaps the best elections in the history of the world. So, I mean, people make up their minds. What happens at the last minute is that people vote for the wrong reasons, so to speak, I mean, what is called the flip. The flip is that you are not voting for your candidate as much as you are voting against someone. So Trump is trying to scare people that, and made a very strong argument till the very end. And that end, I mean, is the early hours of today. I mean, they were out there making speeches till very late at night. And they were both trying to scare their supporters, and not their supporters, they were actually trying to scare the people, and they were aiming at at undecided, that that Trump is unfit to be president, and Trump was saying that you really cannot trust Hillary Clinton because she is the establishment, and the establishment has not served American interests, and the establishment is all corruption, and this whole political system is rigged against the desires of ordinary people. So they were making last-minute, very emotional appeals till the early hours of this day. So it is now for the people to decide what they do. What happens is that there is a flip. There is a flip in the end.
Well, we'll definitely be following up.
People decide to vote against someone and then they cast their votes.
Yes. Mr. Sohail Mohammed, the political analyst and the author, joining us on Skype from New York. Thank you very much for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, these elections will last until 11 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 6 a.m. Cairo local time, and we'll be following up these events and these developments by the minute over here on Nile International. That's all for this special coverage of the American elections of 2016, and we'll be right back in a short while, so don't go away.